the first story of the day, and that's obviously the biggest story of the day, the Los Angeles fire crisis that's taking place, because it is a crisis, where you have these wildfires that could have been started in a homeless camp. There are videos of those taking place. Could have been started by bad electrical wires. The fact is that they don't maintain their wildlife and they don't have necessary water to put these out. So it's a perfect storm for something like this. You have 5 simultaneous wildfires wreaking havoc on Los Angeles. 1,000 structures confirmed destroyed. This was earlier. This hasn't been updated in a couple hours. 2 deaths confirmed. Now, if you really want to look at something crazy, this is now the new evacuation map, according to the Los Angeles scanner. So this is all the area that has been evacuated, and that's just in Santa Monica. Now, we're talking full-scale evacuations. If you've been following it on X, or if you've been going even on Facebook, or I'm sure on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, you'll see the videos of people who are trying to get out, and they're driving through these hellish scapes, these hellish areas that just look absolutely ridiculous. It looks like out of a movie, out of an apocalyptic scenario. But that's because their emergency responses aren't prepped. They don't have enough water for the hoses right now. That's been reported. And people just didn't take it seriously. And that's because their fire chief is a diversity hire. And we are seeing how the lack of urgency on those things has led to, when I say those things, emergency readiness, the idea of evacuations, even the fact that the National Guard was only deployed recently, and all of these things taking place. And just a little while ago, Eric Daughtry was reporting that they just released another evacuation order for Santa Monica. This was an hour ago, 300,000 under evacuation. So this is going to be a major metropolitan area, like we just saw that map. This is all going to have to be rebuilt. And that's what people don't understand, is that all of this is going to have to be rebuilt. And people are already, they're already jumping to the punch, because this is the biggest part of the story. Not that the fires happen. Fires happen, man. It's a sad thing. It takes place. But the worst part is from Unusual Whale citing the New York Post. Wait, that's the wrong one. This is the right one, from Unusual Whale. State Farm, one of the biggest insurers in the state of California, canceled hundreds of homeowner policies last summer in Pacific Palisades, the same area which is now being ravaged by devastating wildfire. Is that a little too convenient? Some people are going to look at that and go, are you kidding me? Really? So the one coverage they needed was canceled last summer in that exact area. This smells like Maui. Everybody remembered the Maui story when that took place, how there was a fire. It seemed like a controlled fire. It didn't touch the houses that were supposedly important. It just burned the place out. And now those people, I don't think, they still can't get back into their area. And nobody's talking to them about rebuilding. A lot of them didn't have insurance, or whatever the case may be. If they did, the insurance is not covering for whatever reason. And now that whole area is potentially going to be rebuilt as a 15-minute city, or something as an expansion for the rich and the famous and the more deserving. Same thing here. Palisades is not, but unlike Maui, Palisades was full of the hoi polloi, was full of the betters, of the people who are supposedly better than you and me. So why would the State Farm cancel the insurance on them? It's a very interesting question. And then you have this event take place. So it is absolutely crazy. Let's see. If a person runs behind on their mortgage, even if they have a repayment agreement, they will show delinquent on their credit. Northridge earthquake changed insurance payouts there. Let's see what else. A few weeks ago, her podcast talked about the very thing happening. I would guess they couldn't get insured with another company. The policy would be forced plays through the bank, and then that makes your payments so much higher. The thing is, if these houses and your Mark and Menendez are bringing up good points, if any of these houses are mortgaged, they're going to have the required insurance, or the bank won't back the mortgage. Anytime you get a house, anybody that's watching that has a mortgage payment, you understand that you have to get almost gap insurance. You have to get certain protections against your house because it's an asset for the bank. And so the bank the bank says, hey, there's a 300,000, 400,000, whatever, XYZ amount of house. And we can't let you just have it, because if an outlet catches fire and it burns down, guess what? We're out of house. We're out an asset. So you need to have coverage. So if a lot of these homes are under mortgages, even if State Farm left, Menendez, you're correct, they probably would have had to go, the banks would have had to have some kind of insurance they brought up, which means they could jack the prices up. Maybe that was a scheme. Or they would have to get an adjoining policy that would cover it. And so they can't, as scandalous as this headline is, it's very strange that they left. Now, nobody's saying somebody backfilled it, but if these mortgages existed, somebody would have had to back support it, backslide to take care of these loans, to make sure that the bank would be insured, unless you go with the idea that the feds are going to come in and just give the banks a bailout, right? Because the banks give everybody bailouts, but I don't think that's the case. But that is the most salacious of these headlines right now, is that State Farm canceled hundreds of these policies. Gunther Eagleman actually did ask a good question. Did they know? What probably happened is they probably got a piece of mail. How many of y'all open every piece of mail from your bank? I don't. And it probably sat there and it probably burned in the fire that was saying, hey, by the way, your insurance is changing after a certain date. You have to make sure you have coverage with somebody else. So there could be people who were notified, didn't open the mail, and then all of a sudden the whole thing goes away. So since we have an expert, let's go back into it. The bank then pays a yearly all right, hold on. Northridge earthquake nearly crushed the insurance company, so everything changed after that. The banks then pay a yearly policy up front, plus collects from the next year's policy, increased monthly payments. Those were difficult calls to make and collect on. I bet. I was in collections as well for a while. And yeah, it's not a fun time it's never a fun time of year to make collection calls, but it is what it is in that regard. You have to do it. But so people are looking, what about the mayor? What about the mayor, Karen Bass, who happened to be in Ghana? She was in Africa, making sure that she was at the inauguration of the president of Ghana. Why is she there? Because, and I talked about this with Nancy Pelosi, for some reason, our elected officials, our betters, feel that they have to go abroad. Nancy Pelosi was at the World War II battle remembrance, and people are like, oh yeah, it was what was it? It was a small country, Little Broughton or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, Nancy Pelosi. Nobody cares about the former Speaker of the House from San Francisco. Just like the people of Ghana do not care that the mayor of Los Angeles was there. I don't care if it was her cousin. You shouldn't be going there when you have major storms. I know the governor of Rhode Island, Don Cherry, got absolutely raked over the coals when he was inaugurated. It was like way back in the 2000s, the aughts. Is that what they call them? He was inaugurated as governor. Then he went to Florida for a week because it was like January, and obviously nothing happened. There was a huge snowstorm. Couldn't get back to the state, and there was a huge power battle, a huge vacuum that had to be filled. He got raked over the coals for that. Why are these mayors doing this? Oh, yeah. The LA mayor also cut the fire department budget by $17 million months before the wildfires, because I'm sure that money could have gone somewhere else to, basket weaving or to electric cars or to any of these other stupid things. But when she came back, people demanded answers from her. Hey, you need to answer for this stuff. And of course, she acted in a typical democratic manner.
For being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
She's a public servant. And this idea that these public servants who live lavish lives, even your local mayor lives better than most of the people in the town that she's supposed to represent. These people live these lavish lives, and then they bungle the bag when it's time for them to do a measly amount of service to the people they supposedly represent. And then when it comes time to answer for said crime, they all clam up and they feel like you don't deserve an answer, that you don't deserve to know what her thinking was when she cut the budget, or you deserve to understand why she felt the need to go to Ghana or wherever in Africa to go to the inauguration of a president of a place that she has no authority or whatever there. And then they have the sad face.
Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
Ma'am, you need to answer these questions. You need to answer these questions. And this idea, this is why you have comms. This is why you have a spokesman. This is why you have a crisis management person. This is why you have all of these people. One of the few classes that I really enjoyed when I was getting my master's in Homeland Security at Penn State was crisis management, and how there are crisis management in regards to responding to a disaster or terrorist attack, whatever the case may be. The primary rule was get out in front of the news, get in front of the news cycle, and answer the people directly. Let them know what's going on, reassure your people, and give them a sense of confidence. Does this, it's a new camera angle, so I'm trying to figure it out. Is this lady over here inspiring confidence? No, she looks like she's a sad panda today.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
You know, the people that don't have a home. You're going to go home to your house. You're going to go home and be taken care of. You're going to have AC, heat, running water. What about the hundreds of thousands of people, the 300,000 people that are under evacuation? Or what about them? What are they? How are you going to inspire them? Deer in the headlights.
No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding
I was right.
back home?
She can't even open a door right. I don't know how these people get elected. And of course, they have these interns that make $10 an hour be their bodyguards and get people out the way. It doesn't even have to be something crazy. Let's say, under a different circumstance, they hired me as their crisis response PR person, right? Why did the governor at the time, the mayor at the time, took a look at the budget and thought that the resources allocated would be better? The 17 million would be allocated to a better place. Obviously, we're seeing with the devastating fires today that was a poor decision on her part, and she's going to be working as hard as she can for the citizens of this city to get this place back up and running. And the people who live in the Palisades, they have her, her full support, and her, she's going to be there for them. Easy enough. Does it mean anything? No. You take a little bit of responsibility, it goes a long way. And that's one thing that politicians will, I guess the first rule is never admit a mistake. If you do, it gives you, it doesn't even have to be huge. We looked at the budget. We hadn't had a wildfire of this severity in years. So I thought that the resources could be allocated to a different place. It's a simple enough statement that people can say, I don't agree with it, and I think you're stupid, but at least there's some kind of rationale there. And then you go to, should you have been in Ghana? Well, this time of year is pretty quiet. I know my seventh cousin is in the Ghana, government, And I just really, even if she was like, we're from there and we thought it'd be a good place to be during the holiday season. Just something. Your constituents demand answers. And the longer you keep them in the dark, the greater the resentment grows to them. The greater the resentment grows. If you are upfront and you talk and you communicate with your constituents, even though this thing's an absolute disaster, a lot of them will forgive you because it'll show strength. See, this doesn't show strength right here. This is cowardness. As much as everybody didn't like Bush, he was on the thing. We're going to show him, blah, blah, blah. He had the bullhorn and everything back in 9/11. Or whatever the case may be. Pick your leader through a time period. But to completely ignore this is just pathetic. And to act like you're beneath answering
Madam
these
Mayor,
questions.
let me ask you just again, have anything to say to the citizens today as you return?
No.
It's also embarrassing that this lady can't even operate a door.
Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Can you take this down?
The thing that she's actually, she had to have the door held open for her.
David, as you say, she wasn't very keen to answer any of your questions there.
She was part of the gift of
fire
society.
chiefs are
Push,
also
pull.
admitting that they just don't have enough personnel to take out the fires.
Yeah, they're fighting all sorts of challenges. They're talking about a water shortage. There are reports of fire hydrant failures. They've been unable to use firefighting aircraft for much of the day due to the smoke that is billowing ominously from the hills where the wildfires are raging. And I suppose despite that political storm, this is, of course, at its heart, a human story, because we've now 80,000 people evacuated. Tens of thousands of others are on standby to be evacuated. 2 lives have been lost in the Eaton Fire, which is what's causing the consequence behind us. The city's iconic landscape almost shrouded completely by smoke, and they're really just taking it one step at a time, hoping at some stage the wind's going to change direction or to die down, and that they're going to be able to get this fire under control.
And as we talked about yesterday, there's plenty of water in California, and I don't have the Trump clip. I should have. I went back and forth on taking it when he was on Rogan, talking about how the water is stolen from different areas. And because they try to save the sea smelt or the minnow or whatever you guys came up with yesterday, they dump millions of gallons back into the sea. And they don't keep up on the fire hydrants. And they don't, they're giving away their gear to the Ukraine. And they just act like all of these things. There is no end result. There will be no repercussions to it. And so it's one of these things that when you treat these scenarios as if they're not going to happen, you end up with stuff like this. This is just one person on their drive out taking pictures of all of these things just burnt to the ground. Burnt to the ground. There are hundreds of videos like this over and over and over again. Right now, what is stopping the fire? What could? This is a great point, Mark. What is stopping? The only thing they're doing at this point is hoping and praying that this fire, that the wind stops. That's their big hope. Hey, maybe the wind will stop and we could get, maybe we can get some rain, or maybe something will happen. They're worried. They're hoping that something will deliver them from this, instead of having the ability to fight back, or at least mitigate and combat these things. So we have a fire department for, and all these other kinds of things. So it's awful. It's terrible. And it's to see this happen. And despite the fact people are like, oh, LA gets what it deserves, blah, 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 this and that, pedophiles, yada, 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 you say whatever you want. There are a lot of innocent people there. There's a lot of innocent people that have lost everything. And they are subject to incompetent leadership. And they are subject to people that truly, truly, truly do not care about them. And and unfortunately, the populace always finds out too late that they just don't care about them.